The wind followed me into Mercy Ridge like a dog that hadn't been fed. Dust stuck to my coat, and the sky above was the color of an old bruise. I didn't expect the town to welcome me, wasn't looking for welcome anyhow. I just needed a place where no one knew my name, where a man could drink without being asked what he used to be. I rode in quiet, boots worn and mind louder than it ought to be. The horse beneath me, an old roan called Birch, had more sense than I did most days. He slowed before the church bell came into view, snorting like he smelled something wrong. I didn't blame him. Mercy Ridge looked like it had forgotten how to pray. The main street sagged under heat and judgment. Wooden storefronts leaned like they were tired of standing, and a crowd was gathering near the general store. Folks murmured low, not the usual, gossip hum. This was sharper, edged like a blade held too long in the fire. I kept to the saddle's shadow and watched. She stumbled from the back of a wagon first. Barefoot. White dress smudged brown at the hem, veil hanging by one limp pin. Her belly swelled under the lace, unmistakable. Someone shouted a name, Maybelle, and a rock hit the wagon's side. Laughter rose, thin and bitter. I'd seen cruelty before, enough to last 3 lifetimes. But there was something uglier about the way this town did it. Self-righteous, like they thought God himself had written their permission. A man stepped forward then, tall, ironed clean, star glinting on his chest, just above a row of medals he hadn't earned the right way. Marshal Clive Raleigh, the type who'd rather gut a sinner than save one. "You think that dress makes you pure, girl?" he barked. Maybelle didn't answer. Her eyes searched the crowd, not for help. No, I knew that look. She wasn't expecting a hand, just looking for the one soul who might not throw another stone. Raleigh spat and turned to the onlookers. "Town's got no place for harlots parading as wives, especially ones carrying another man's shame." Another voice, female sharp, chimed in. "She ain't even mourned proper, buried him a week ago and strutting like a queen." So that was it. Her husband was dead, and she was left with the baby and the blame. Still, I didn't move. Maybe I should have. I told myself I was no one's hero, hadn't been for a long time. The last time I'd tried, it cost me a woman and a son before either had a chance to cry. I slid off Birch slow, kept to the post's shadow. The tavern called from across the way, promised silence, maybe whiskey. But my boots didn't turn. I stood there, spine prickling, watching them tighten their circle around her. They didn't hit her yet. Not quite. Just shouted. Called her things I won't repeat. The kind of words that sound brave in a crowd and cowardly alone. Maybelle didn't run. She stood like a post in the storm, one hand resting on her belly, the other twisted in the torn hem of her dress. Her mouth was tight. Her eyes were tired. But there was something in her face that felt like fire, a flicker, a refusal. Raleigh raised a hand like he meant to end it. "You got 10 seconds to get out of town, girl." She didn't flinch. And that's when I moved. I stepped into the ring of dust and hate, like it was a saloon fight I hadn't been invited to. Eyes turned. Silence thickened. "You touch her," I said, voice dry as gravel, "and I'll bury that badge with what's left of your teeth." Raleigh turned, saw me, didn't recognize the face. Too many years, too much wear. "Who the hell are you?" "Just passing through," I said, but not blind. Someone in the crowd muttered my name, not Beau, my full name. Beauregard. Ransom. That old weight pressed down again. I saw it move across their faces like a ghost. Some knew the stories. The man who rode out of 3 Pines after burying a wife and stillborn child on the same morning. The man who hadn't been right since. "She ain't your problem," Raleigh sneered. "She is now." I walked to her. She watched me, uncertain. No trust yet. Just exhaustion. I didn't speak, just slipped my arms beneath her knees and shoulders like I was lifting something fragile out of floodwater. She didn't resist, just rested her head against my chest. The crowd parted, not out of kindness, but confusion. They didn't know what to make of me. Birch stood steady when I brought her close. I eased her into the saddle and climbed up behind, careful. Her fingers clung to the front of my coat. She didn't cry, but I felt her breath shake. Raleigh shouted something. I didn't hear it. The wind had picked up again, loud in my ears. Birch trotted slow, sure-footed through silence. The only sound left behind was the creak of shame in wooden floors and the old bell swaying above the empty church. I rode her past the edge of town to where the grass grew taller and judgment couldn't reach. And in that quiet, I realized something I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't just carrying her. She was carrying me, too. The old church leaned into the wind like it wanted to fall. Its cross was crooked, and the front door swung on one hinge, groaning with each gust. I hadn't been inside a holy place in 15 years, but it was the only roof I trusted not to ask questions. Inside, the pews were dust-covered and cracked, sun bleeding through the broken stained glass in dull streaks of crimson and blue. I laid her down on the front bench where the light was warmest, careful as a man who's known what it means to lose. Her dress was torn along the side, mud clinging to the lace like dried blood. But her face held quiet thunder. She hadn't spoken once since I picked her up. Not a word. But now she looked at me like she was measuring the weight of my silence, trying to decide if I was the kind of man who broke things or mended them. I poured a half can of water into a cracked bowl, tore a strip from the cleanest rag I had in my saddlebag, and knelt beside her. "I won't touch you unless you say so," I said, "but you're bruised and you're bleeding." She nodded once, almost like it hurt. I pressed the rag against a cut near her collarbone. Her breath caught, but she didn't pull away. Her skin was fever-warm, her hands white-knuckled in her lap. "They would have killed me," she whispered. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe they just wanted to watch you fall." Her eyes welled, but no tears spilled. She blinked them back, like she'd done it too many times to let them loose now. "I wasn't supposed to be there. I stayed out of sight after Tom died. But I needed milk for the baby." "How far along?" 6 months, maybe more." Her voice cracked, soft as rain on dry dirt. "Tom was a miner. Took a job outside Rivet Pass. It was supposed to be just one season. He wrote letters, promised. We'd start fresh once he came back. I didn't ask what happened. I knew the look in her eyes. The kind that only came when a future got ripped away mid-sentence. They said I shamed the town," she continued, jaw clenched. "That no decent woman should walk around with a belly and no husband. They didn't even let me bury him proper. Just stuck him in the ground like he was nothing." I let the silence hold her pain. No use trying to dress it with words. "What's your name?" she asked finally. "Bo Ransom." She looked at me sideways. "You're not from Mercy." "Was once. Long time ago." She didn't press, just nodded again, her chin dipping like a weary flame in wind. A sound broke the hush, hooves in the distance. Sharp, deliberate. I stood and stepped to the door, peering through the broken panel. A rider passed along the ridge, but he didn't stop, just circled back toward town, watching maybe waiting. "They'll come back," she said, reading my tension. "Raleigh won't let this go." I shut the door, wedging a chair under the handle. Not that it'd stop much. "Then we stay quiet," I said. "At least until you're strong enough to ride." She looked down at her stomach, one hand tracing the curve with something between dread and love. I don't know where to go. No family, no money. I sold my ring to buy oats. I sat across from her. You don't need to go anywhere just yet. Why are you helping me? Her voice was steadier now, like she didn't trust the kindness. I thought about lying, saying it was the right thing, that I hated injustice, that I had some high sense of honor. But the truth was simpler and heavier. My wife died giving birth, I said. The baby didn't make it either. Town said it was her fault. Too frail, they said. They watched her waste away and turned their backs, same as they did to you. She stared at me, not with pity, but something gentler, a kind of understanding that didn't need explanation. I'm sorry, she said. Me too. A gust blew the door hard against its frame. We both jumped. I reached for the rifle by my saddlebag, but no one came through. Just the wind, howling, like it had a bone to pick. We can stay here tonight, I said, voice low. There's a root cellar below the altar, dry enough. I'll keep watch. She hesitated, then asked, You think they'll try to burn us out? If they do, they'll find I burn back. That made her smile, faint but real. You don't talk much, she said. Not much to say most days. Still, she said, curling onto her side, one arm wrapped around her stomach like a shield. You say the right things. I sat near the altar that night, rifle across my knees back to the wind. The stars blinked through the cracks in the roof, watching, waiting. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a man just passing through. There was something worth staying for, something fragile, something fierce, something with a heartbeat that hadn't yet learned the cruelty of the world. She'd said they would come back. I believed her, and I'd be here when they did. The morning came slow, with light that sifted through broken beams like gold dust, trying to remember what warmth felt like. I hadn't slept, not fully. I sat with my back to the altar, eyes sharp through the dark, ears tuned for footsteps that never came. Maybelle stirred on the pew, hair matted, cheeks flushed. She looked younger in sleep, like the weight hadn't caught her yet. But when her eyes opened, the truth came back fast. Grief, fear, and the long road ahead all crowding her gaze. You stayed up all night, she murmured. Didn't trust the quiet. She pushed herself upright, wincing as she moved. I offered her the canteen, and she drank deep, as if water might wash away the memory of yesterday. I had a dream, she said, voice hoarse, that I was back home, before Tom left. Porch swing was creaking. He had that dumb smile on his face. Sun was warm on my belly. Don't sound like a dream, I said. Sounds like a memory worth keeping. She set the canteen down. It hurt waking up. Most good memories do. We sat in silence for a stretch, just the wind whistling, through the slats, and a pair of crows arguing over something dead out by the fence line. I rose, dusted off my coat, and walked to the front door. The chair was still wedged beneath the handle, undisturbed. But my gut twisted anyway. I stepped. Outside, Birch was grazing near the edge of the trees. The trail back to town sat empty, but the air felt heavy, like something was coming that hadn't shown its face yet. When I turned back, she was at the doorway, holding onto the frame for balance. We can't stay here long. No, I agreed, but we ain't leaving blind. She squinted into the light, eyes narrowing. You got a plan? I nodded toward the hills. There's an old hunter's shack past the river bend, about 2 hours out. Remote, quiet. I can take you there. Her shoulders relaxed a little. Why are you doing this, Beau? I leaned against the porch post. Because you're not. The first soul they've tried to break. And I know what it's like when nobody stands up. She looked at me for a long while, then nodded. Then let's go. Before they decide to come with fire. We packed light, just enough bread, water, and dried meat to last a few days. I wrapped her dress in an old blanket from my saddlebag and gave her one of my shirts to wear. It swallowed her frame, but she smiled faintly as she buttoned it over her belly. Birch groaned under the weight of both of us, but he was steady. The road curved wide around Mercy, and we kept to the edge of the trees out of sight. Every hoofbeat felt like a dare, like we were riding the seam between safe and seen. Maybelle didn't talk much, but she kept one hand resting on her belly, like she was shielding the life inside with sheer will. I glanced down once, caught her lips moving. In silence. "You praying?" "No," she said softly. "Just telling him we're gonna be all right." Him. She already knew. Or maybe just hoped. The shack was still standing, though barely. A frame of logs and moss with a rusted tin roof, tucked so deep in the pines you'd miss it if you weren't looking. I'd stayed there once in the dead of winter, long before the world went quiet inside me. Back when I believed healing could happen in solitude. We cleared out the dust, laid down the blankets near the fire pit. She winced with each step, but didn't complain. I admired that. How she carried pain like it wasn't her enemy, just something she'd agreed to survive. As night crept in, I lit a small fire. She sat across from me, cross-legged, belly rounding the edge of her lap like a promise too big for the room. "I haven't said thank you," she whispered. "You don't owe me thanks." "No," she said, looking up, "but I owe you truth." I tilted my head. "The baby. It's not Tom's." I didn't flinch. Just waited. "Tom was good to me," she said. "Kind, gentle. But we couldn't. We never could. He took sick not long after we married. Doctor said it'd never happen. He made peace with it." She paused. Firelight flickered across her face, gold on the edge of sorrow. "Then he took that job. Left to earn enough so we could move to Kansas. He told me to stay with his cousin, Abel. He trusted him." She swallowed hard. "Abel didn't ask." I sat quiet, every muscle still. I didn't ask if she fought, didn't ask why she hadn't run. Some truths don't need dressing. "When Tom found out," she went on, "he came back early, confronted Abel. Folks say it was an accident, that Tom fell. But I know better. And after he died, they blamed me. Said I brought shame on his name." The fire cracked. A log collapsed into ember. Her shoulders trembled. I stood and walked over. Sat beside her, not touching, just close enough for her to know I wasn't moving. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "I kept." "The baby," she whispered. "Even after everything, I just couldn't end something innocent." "You did right." We sat like that, wrapped in orange light and the kind of silence that builds trust. Then a sound split the dark. A branch, snapping under weight. Not far. Her eyes found mine. I nodded once, reached for my rifle, and rose without a word. My hand brushed the cabin wall, searching for steady. There were only 2 reasons to follow a woman into the woods, and both meant trouble. The night pressed in, thick and breathless. I crouched near the doorframe, rifle steady in my hands, every sense tuned like wire pulled taut. Maybelle sat behind me, barely breathing, her hands curled around her belly like she could shield the child from what came next. Another crack. Closer. Then silence. "Bo," she whispered. "You think it's Raleigh?" I didn't answer. Didn't want to name the devil before I saw his boots. But her voice had that low tremble, the one that came when a woman was preparing for the worst, just in case the man standing between her and hell wasn't enough. A shadow moved across the trees. One man, tall, broad shoulders, moved like he owned whatever he saw. Lantern glow caught the edge of his coat. Dark green, familiar. Raleigh. I motioned Maybelle to the corner, just behind the stove. Then I stepped out onto the porch, slow, calm, like I was inviting death to sit a spell. Raleigh stopped just past the firelight. A smirk played on his lips, slow and mean. "Well now, Bo Ransom, didn't think I'd find you babysitting." "I didn't." "Lower the rifle." "Didn't think I'd see you crawling this far from town. Lost something?" He took another step forward. "Just cleaning up a mess. Girl made her choice when she ran. You don't know what she's done. She's pregnant. Bruised, alone. She's trouble." He spit to the side. "And you're a fool. I've been called worse." Raleigh reached for the revolver at his hip. My finger curled tighter on the trigger. "Don't," I said. But he wasn't listening. He thought. He knew men like me, thought grief made me soft. He was wrong. His gun cleared the holster, and I fired. Sound split the trees, echoed like thunder off stone. Raleigh dropped hard, clutching his thigh, screaming like a coyote in a trap. Blood poured through his fingers. I walked over slow, rifle still aimed. "Next shot won't be your leg." "You're dead, Ransom," he gasped. "Town'll hang you for this. Then you best crawl fast." He snarled but didn't reach again. He knew. He saw it in my eyes. I wasn't bluffing. I'd buried too much to let this go easy. "You tell Mercy this," I said, kneeling beside him. "Tell them she's under my protection." "Tell them what?" "Happens when men turn their backs on what's right." Raleigh spat blood. "She ain't worth it. She's more worth than every man in that town put together." I turned and walked back into the shack, leaving him groaning in the dirt. Maybelle stood just inside the doorway, face pale, hands shaking. "You shot him." "I did." "You could have killed him." "I might still." She stepped forward, looked into my face like she was searching for something buried deep. Then her shoulders eased. "You didn't want to." "No," I said. "But I would have." She nodded, then sank onto the cot like her legs gave out. I sat beside her, and for a long moment we just listened to the wind. No shouts, no footsteps, just quiet. "You know what happens now, don't you?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "They'll come. You'll be hunted." "Maybe. Or maybe word gets around that Raleigh went looking for a fight and came. Back with a limp and a warning." "Even if they don't come," she whispered, eyes on the glowing fire. "You can't stay with me. It ain't safe." "Safe left a long time ago, Maybelle. I'm not leaving." She turned to me, eyes glassy with the kind of gratitude words can't carry. "You don't have to fix this, Bo." "I ain't fixing. I'm staying." A log popped in the fire. She leaned into me, slow and careful, her head resting against my shoulder. I wrapped an arm around her, held her close, felt her heartbeat press against mine. "You know," she said softly, "he kicks when you talk." I smiled. "Smart kid. He's going to need a name." "Yeah," I said, voice low. "He will." Outside the trees stood still. The stars burned quiet. Maybe the world wouldn't make room for us. Maybe mercy was just a word people scrawled on signs to make themselves feel better. But in that moment, in that small, cracked cabin, with a bruised woman and an unborn child leaning into my ribs, I felt something close enough to peace to hold on to. And I knew I wasn't broken anymore. Just unfinished. Like something being built slowly by hand, something worth defending. They could come for us, but I wouldn't run again. Not this time.